What I was watching wasn't hockey. What I was watching was leadership. And more specifically, I was watching something that had become so completely part of Barkov that he didn't appear to be thinking about it in the moment. He just noticed, he communicated, he took responsibility, he cared for the person, and he protected the team. No speech, no performance, no applause, just who he.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode number 386 and the 49th edition of the Edge on the Napkin series. You know, there are some ideas that arrive all at once. I've had those. And there are others that seem to follow you for years before you understand what they were trying to become. And for almost a decade, I've been thinking about one question. Why do some teams, some leaders, win once, while others build something that just keeps on winning? I've studied championship teams, captains, coaches, organizations, and I've looked at what survives when talent changes, when the pressure increases, and when everyone else has had time to figure out what made you successful in the first place. I knew there was something there. There had to be. I just couldn't quite see the whole thing. And then I watched a tiny piece of video. Aleksander Barkov and Marchand had just won the Stanley Cup with the Florida Panthers, their second championship in 2 years, Marchand's first. The celebration was winding down, and Marchand starts drifting back into the club, and Barkov noticed. He simply put his arm around him and gently redirected him toward where the team was going. And something in me clicked, because sometimes when you're carrying a question long enough, one small moment can suddenly reorganize everything you thought you knew about it. That moment became part of the foundation for my upcoming book, Dynasty DNA. But there's something I want you to know before we start talking about the book over the coming weeks. I know it looks like a sport book, but it really isn't. Sports are where I found the evidence, but the deeper subject is identity, leadership identity, because the 5 traits I discovered in Dynasty leaders aren't really 5 behaviors to copy. They're evidence of something that lives underneath, that grows underneath, and that distinction may matter much more than it first appears, especially if you've already built something, especially if you already know how to perform the behaviors that brought you right here to this point, and especially if some part of you has begun to wonder whether copying better behavior is enough for your chapter that's coming next. So, today I want to tell you where Dynasty DNA came from, why it took me almost 10 years to see it, and why the real question may not be in which traits you may want to develop. It may be in who you have to become so those traits no longer need to be performed or pushed. Let's dive in. Sometimes an idea takes 10 years, and sometimes it takes 30 seconds. Sometimes it takes both. You can think about it for years, research it, talk about it, turn it over from every possible angle, and then one random moment appears, and suddenly you can see the whole thing, just like that. That happened to me recently, a little while ago. And that's why after almost 10 years of thinking about this, I finally have a new book coming out. It's called Dynasty DNA. And I want to spend a little time today telling you where it came from, because while this book may look like it's about sports, it really isn't. I've been just absolutely fascinated by dynasties for a very long time, and not just championship teams, dynasties. And there's a really big difference. A championship can happen once. Everything can line up, the talent, the timing, health, a couple great breaks and a great run. And suddenly you're standing up there holding a trophy over your head. But doing it again in a short period of time is different. Now everyone knows what you did. They study you, they prepare for you. Your people get older, the contracts change, and expectations rise. Winning once creates an entirely new set of challenges. powerful challenges. So I became interested in a different question. Why do some teams keep winning while other organizations don't? And what exists inside of the organizations that repeat? And more specifically, what exists inside the people who lead them? And that question has been just rolling around in my head for close to a decade. I started collecting examples and doing research, reading, watching, studying teams, captains, coaches. And because of the work I do with great leaders and entrepreneurs, I kept seeing connections between these sports organizations and the businesses I was sitting inside every week. The environments were absolutely, totally different, but the leadership problem often wasn't. An entrepreneur can have a very talented team. A coach can have a very talented team. People can leave. People can disengage. People can protect themselves. And they can technically do their jobs while slowly withdrawing the best of themselves. And yet some leaders create organizations where people keep choosing to lean in year after year. And that fascinates me because I knew there was something there. I didn't exactly know what the book was yet. And then I saw this 30-second video. The Florida Panthers had just won their second consecutive Stanley Cup, and Aleksander Barkov had now championed or captained two championship teams in back-to-back years. Brad Marchand had joined the Panthers only a few months earlier. For years, he had been part of the Boston Bruins. Now, if people don't know the rivalry, it was intense. He'd been on the other side as an opponent, and he had been fighting Florida off. He was actually hated by Florida Panthers fans prior to the trade. And now he was on their side and had won his first Stanley Cup with Florida. The celebration went late, like very late, the way a lot of those pro sports celebrations go. And somewhere near the end of the night, someone captured this tiny moment on a phone from across the street. Barkov and Marchand were leaving together, and Marchand is by every measure enjoying, like really enjoying, his first Stanley Cup celebration. And at one point, he starts moving back towards the club. He sort of breaks from the group and goes back toward the club. And Barkov doesn't give a speech. He doesn't call him out. There's no big moment there. He just puts his arm around Marchand and gently redirects him toward the team, toward where the team is going. That's it. It was 30 seconds, maybe less. And, people laughed about how Marchand looks like he was having a really good time. Very few people talked about Barkov. But for me, in that moment, the book came together. All of it. Almost instantly. Because what I was watching wasn't hockey. What I was watching was leadership. And more specifically, I was watching something that had become so completely part of Barkov that he didn't appear to be thinking about it in the moment. He just noticed, he communicated, he took responsibility, he cared for the person, and he protected the team. No speech, no performance, no applause, just who he was being. It's who he is. And that distinction really colored in the lines of all of the book. Most leadership development starts on the outside. We find someone we admire, we study what they do, they prepare it relentlessly. So we decide, okay, let's make a little list. Let's prepare relentlessly. We prepare more. They communicate well, so we learn communication techniques. They hold people accountable, or it looks like they do, so we install accountability systems. They're humble, so we try to behave humbly. They're connected to a purpose larger than themselves, so we go write a purpose statement and put it on the wall. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of it. Those characteristics are really great, and those actions are fantastic. Except I think it reverses the order. Because after spending years studying leaders of repeat champions, dynasties, I kept finding these 5 traits: relentless preparation, servant humility, elite communication, daily accountability, and purpose-driven community impact. Those became the 5 traits inside Dynasty DNA.
I'm Hannah. I've lost 75 pounds in 20 months with GLP-1s, plus diet and exercise. On Row, I've gone from struggling to run a mile to running farther every day. You can access FDA-approved GLP-1s online. Get the support you need to reach your weight loss goals. Go to row.co/weight to see if you qualify. I'm a paid Row partner. 20% average weight loss in 1 year in non-diabetics with obesity or overweight with a weight-related medical condition versus 3.1% in placebo arm. RX only. To stay informed about serious side effects, go to row.co/safety.
But the important discovery wasn't the 5 traits because they're on the outside. People can see them. The important discovery was that the traits weren't the starting point. They were the evidence. Dynasty leaders don't practice the traits and then somehow develop the character required to lead the dynasty. They become a certain kind of person. The traits are what everybody else can see, and that changed everything for me. See, the traits are evidence. Think about how often we do this in business. We see a founder who seems calm under enormous pressure, so we think we need how to act calmer. We see a leader have a difficult or powerful conversation cleanly. We study the words they used and their demeanor, and we see someone build an incredibly committed team. We copy the meeting structure. We write it down. Maybe we have schedules or apps that help us stay on schedule. We're looking at the final frame of a movie, though. We're just copying the evidence and the outcome. The interesting question is what happened before that? What does a person have to believe about themselves to remain calm when the pressure rises? Who do they have to become before difficult conversations stop feeling like threats? What relationship do they have to have with their own ego before giving somebody else the credit that just becomes natural? That's identity. And identity has become increasingly important in almost everything I talk about, everything I teach, and everything I work on. Because behavior without identity is exhausting. You can force a behavior for a while and it works. For sure. You can remind yourself, you can create a checklist, you can put an app on your phone, you can put something on the wall, put a Post-it on your computer screen. But when the pressure rises, we tend to fall back toward who we believe we are. And that's why the inside matters. And this is the architecture sort of underneath the traits. People who've been following Edge of the Napkin for a while will recognize some of what sits underneath this book, because I didn't suddenly invent a completely different way of thinking when I started writing Dynasty DNA. The book actually helped me see several things I've been working on and how to fit them all together. Focus, align, act. That's the activation framework, the operating sequence. Focus is obviously, what am I building? Who am I becoming? Where am I pointing? Align is, where am I right now? Can I truly appreciate myself in this moment? Are my actions consistent with what I say is mattering, what I say is important? And then act, commit, move, do the thing, release the need to control exactly what happens next, but go all in. And underneath that are the 4 pillars of what I call magnetic leadership: confidence, congruence, calm, and contribution. Those describe the internal architecture of the leader. Then, on the outside, we begin to see the 5 traits. From the Dynasty research, it's 3 things: focus, align, act, 4 pillars: confidence, congruence, calm, and contribution, then 5 traits on top of it all: preparation, humility, communication, accountability, and purpose-driven community impact. And that sequence matters. Focus, align, act helps to access the inner architecture. The inner architecture produces behavior that is a natural expression of who they really are, and that repeated behavior becomes visible to everybody else as the traits. The traits are evidence. So Barkov didn't need a leadership technique. If you go back to that video, Barkov just won the cup again. The season's over. The speeches are over. There is no game tomorrow. Nobody is asking him to lead. Nobody is evaluating his leadership, and he probably didn't know that there was anybody watching. And that is exactly the moment when a leadership technique should disappear. But Barkov is still Barkov. He notices Marchand, his teammate. His arm goes around him. A loving gesture, a small redirection. Keep moving with us. And that matters to me because I think the deepest test of identity is what remains when there's nothing left to prove. It's easy to behave like the leader when the room knows that you're leading and there's a microphone in your mouth. It's easy to behave when everybody's eyes are on you. It's different when nobody's keeping score. That's when behavior starts telling us something about identity. And it made me reconsider what I've been trying to understand over the last 10 years. Maybe dynasty leadership isn't primarily about what these people know. Maybe it's not primarily about talent. Maybe it's not even primarily about the habits. Maybe the habits become remarkable because of the person underneath them. So why did I write about sports? Well, I kind of love sports. That's a good place to start. But there's some people who are going to look at the cover of the book and say, a sports book, and they're right. There's a lot of sports in it. I studied repeat champions in the NHL, NBA, NFL, and Major League Baseball over a 30-year period. There are the Panthers, the Penguins, the Blackhawks, the Chiefs, Patriots, Warriors, Bulls, Spurs, and others. Some incredible leaders, some complicated leaders, some teams that appear to contradict the whole idea until you look much more closely. Sports give us a remarkable lab. The results are public, the pressure is public, the people leave, coaches change, opponents adapt. We get to watch what happens over time, and most importantly, there's a scoreboard. But I'm not writing the book for someone wondering how to captain a hockey team or quarterback a football team. I'm writing it for the entrepreneur or leader who wakes up thinking about payroll. The founder who has built something real and has discovered that their results now depend on people they can't control. The leader who was once the most important producer in the company and is beginning to realize that being the best at the work may now be limiting the work. The person whose organization has grown faster than their identity as a leader, and that's where this gets interesting, because I see entrepreneurs doing the same thing we do when we study sports. They try to copy championship behavior. They build the systems, install the process, adopt the operating system and the routine. And sometimes what actually needs to change is the person underneath the routine, the identity inside the characteristic. And this is probably the single idea I want to leave here today. There's a difference between having a characteristic and building the identity from which that characteristic naturally comes, naturally expresses itself. Take accountability, for example. A leader can install accountability, scorecards and KPIs and weekly meetings and performance reviews and blah, 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 blah. Our accountability can become part of the leader's identity, on the other hand. I keep my word. I tell the truth early. I don't exempt myself from the standard. Those two versions can look awfully similar for a while until the pressure arrives. Then identity version holds. Take humility, for example. You can perform humility. You can put on a veneer of humility. You can give credit publicly, use all the right words, or you can develop an identity where your value no longer depends upon receiving credit. And those aren't the same thing. You can take preparation. Preparation can come from fear of loss. I have to be ready because I can't afford to look foolish. Or it can come from identity. This is how I respect the work. I can't think of any other way of doing it. Same late nights, maybe same all-nighters, but different, completely different leader. And that's the layer underneath Dynasty DNA. And yeah, it took 10 years. I thought a lot about why I couldn't write this book earlier. I had most of the pizzas. I had most of the team. I knew them pretty well. I had many of the stories, and I'd been thinking about leadership for decades, literally decades. I've collected more than 1,000 napkins on paper through Paper Napkin Wisdom. I've sat across from hundreds of entrepreneurs, athletes, and leaders and asked them to reduce what they knew to something small enough to write down. So the data existed for sure, but I don't think I could see all of the pieces of the structure yet. And sometimes an idea takes time. It needs time, not because you're procrastinating, because you're still...
I'm Serena Williams, and I'm healthier on Ro. I've lost 34 pounds in a year with GLP-1s, diet, and exercise. On Ro, you can access GLP-1 options, including the first FDA-approved GLP-1 pill for weight loss. Go to ro.co/journey to see if you qualify. 14 to 20% average weight loss in 1 year in non-diabetics with obesity or overweight with a weight-related medical condition versus 2.2% to 3.1% in placebo arm. RX only. To stay informed about serious side effects, go to ro.co/safety.
Becoming capable of seeing it. And this has been one of the surprises, beautiful surprises of writing this book. It has connected work I've been doing for years. Paper Napkin Wisdom, Focus, Align, Act, Magnetic Leadership, the work I've done with entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers, and my own relationship with sports. Things that I thought were separate really started to connect. And then I watched one captain put his arm around one teammate outside a Miami nightclub. Click. 10 years of dots suddenly had lines between them. So we're heading toward an October launch for Dynasty DNA. So over the next few weeks, I'm going to share parts of this thinking on Edge of a Napkin. Not chapter summaries. I don't want to spend the next several weeks telling you what's in my book or trying to even pitch it. I'd rather explore some of the questions that writing it has created for me. What does relentless preparation look like when it comes from love instead of fear? What does humility actually require when you're the most accomplished person in the room? Why do some teams tell each other the truth while others slowly learn to hide it? What happens when accountability becomes identity instead of enforcement? And what changes when winning isn't big enough to be the purpose anymore? Those are sports questions, and they're not. They're leadership questions. They're identity questions. And for a proven entrepreneur entering another chapter of their life, they may be much more personal than they first appear. So I keep coming back to that tiny piece of video. Two men walking out of a club after winning a Stanley Cup. One starts in another direction. The other one notices. An arm around the shoulder, a quiet turn, and they keep walking together. 30 seconds, 10 years. And that's sometimes how an idea arrives. But maybe the better question isn't what idea you've been carrying. Maybe it's what identity you've been building quietly for years that you are finally ready to see. So if that lands for you, I hope you'll share it with me on a napkin. Just tag it with the hashtag Paper Napkin Wisdom, because ideas small enough to fit on a napkin are often large enough to change your world. Make it a great day. I believe in you.
Are you noticing your car insurance rate creep up even without tickets or claims? You're not alone. That's why there's Jerry, your proactive insurance assistant. Jerry handles the legwork by comparing quotes side by side from over 50 top insurers so you can confidently hit buy. No spam calls, no hidden fees. Jerry even tracks rates and alerts you when it's best to shop. Drivers who save with Jerry could save over $1,300 a year. Don't settle for higher rates. Download the Jerry app or visit jerry.ai/libsyn today. That's jerry.ai/libsyn.
This summer, turn your gifting game up during the Summer Plant and Garden Sale at 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, you can score up to 30% off succulents, bonsais, fresh-cut blooms, and more. Whether you're celebrating a birthday, sending a thank you, or a just-because surprise, 1-800-Flowers lets you save big on a stunning selection of gifts. Save up to 30% off during the summer plant and garden sale at 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. That's 1-800-Flowers.com/podcast. Gift something unforgettable today.
There are still places to go, people to see, and adventures ahead. Azure Well creates vitamins and supplements focused on purity, potency, and consistency for people who want to make the most of every season of life. Every formula is lab-tested and designed for everyday wellness. If quality matters to you, compare what's in your cabinet to Azure Well. Visit AzureLivingWell.com. That's AZURE livingwell.com. These products have not been evaluated by the FDA and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.